tonight. Thick smoke blankets much of the province, reducing visibility and air quality. That smoke is coming from forest fires in our province. We'll have the latest on the fire situation.
It's so surreal when you drive through Highway 155.
Plus, the province partners on a project to put free menstrual products into the hands of those that need them most.
Having period products available is important to our health in all aspects.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, May 17th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Thanks for watching. Sam is away tonight. Wildfires in northwestern Saskatchewan continue to spread, forcing people from their homes. Today, the province activated its Emergency Operations Centre to beef up its response. With highways closed, it's focusing on getting food and fuel into communities and helping those who had to get out. Jesse Anton reports.
It's so surreal when you drive through Highway 155. It's like driving through a black tunnel, literally. It's so bad.
This is the view of many people in northwestern Saskatchewan this week as they flee their homes due to several wildfires in the region. The two biggest, the Vermette fire southwest of Dillon and the Shaw fire near Buffalo Narrows. Together, there are more than 120,000 hectares in size. In a response, the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency says it's activated the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. That's the coordinated response between the agency and the provincial government.
The PEOC staff have significant expertise and experience in coordinating and deploying emergency resources and is closely connected to the national and other provincial and territorial agencies to leverage support and resources when required.
The fire situation in northern Saskatchewan was also touched on in the legislature Wednesday. The opposition NDP questioned the Premier about whether his government is doing enough.
All of those residents and families in northern Saskatchewan, and they'll have the full support of the government of Saskatchewan across ministries, Mr. Speaker, in ensuring that they have the supplies north of the fire line and ensuring that they have all the fire support ultimately that we have.
There's no official count on the number of evacuees, but hundreds more are expected to disperse across southern Saskatchewan in the coming days. And as they do, the Public Safety Agency says it wants better communication on the ground.
We are engaged in the emergency measures organizations in those communities, and we continue to strive to improve and enhance those communications.
So far this year, there have been nearly 170 wildfires, and the Public Safety Agency says that's more than twice as many as normal. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
And Saskatchewan residents seeking information about the fire bans or evacuations are asked to call the wildfire inquiry line you see there, 1-855-559-5502. And wildfire smoke from those fires blanketed most of the province today, uncomfortable for some but dangerous for others. Here's Jason Warwick with that story.
Strong overnight winds pushed heavy, thick smoke down to Saskatoon, Regina, and other communities hundreds of kilometers away from any wildfire. The smoke is coming from the fires burning in northwestern Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, and the Northwest Territories.
Obviously, you can smell it in the air, so I'm just hoping this wind stays up so it makes it easier for everybody else to do activities outside.
Just the smell and kind of affecting my nose, making it tickle, but that's about it.
I try to go less. I typically try to go for runs, and I won't be doing any of that. I did go for a little walk this morning. It was still really smoky. I see a lot of people with masks on, which I'm considering doing, but I haven't quite yet.
Air quality health index values soared above a value of 10, which is a very high risk. An Environment Canada official says the air quality and visibility can fluctuate by location from hour to hour, but these very high risk levels are rare in Saskatchewan.
We don't often see wildfire smoke this early in the season. And I think that's what the real rare part is.
Many school trips and sports events were canceled Wednesday, but not all of them. This track meet went ahead in Regina, so students would have the chance to qualify for provincials.
What we are doing, we've asked that any students who have existing lung conditions needed to have express permission from their parents to attend today, and also anybody with a medication needed to have that medication with them today.
One first aid instructor said these conditions are uncomfortable for the general public, but they can be dangerous for anyone with breathing or heart conditions.
For the general public, if you're healthy, it's probably not that big of a deal. It's an inconvenience for a few days. But for people who have lung problems, heart problems, breathing problems of any kind, that can be a much bigger deal. And that's where they want to be aware of what's going on. And for some of these people, it might mean that they're going to be staying home. They definitely make sure their medication is up to date and they've got enough to get them through something like this.
Conditions improved Wednesday afternoon in Saskatoon and other communities. But with hot, dry weather in the forecast, weather experts say there could be more smoke to come. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
And the wildfire smoke is affecting the Saskatchewan Rough Riders training camp. The Riders moved indoors today at the Saskatoon Soccer Centre. Head coach Craig Dickinson says it's a recommendation that comes from the CFL Players Association.
We had to do it. You know, we checked the weather last night and you could see the smoke moved in, and then this morning it was the same. So really, you know, I want to give props to our equipment staff, training staff, and our football ops. They were able to get us into that facility really on a moment's notice, and it was a good day. The guys practiced well. It's a nice facility, and we got what we needed to.
Football at the soccer center wasn't the only unusual sight today. This thing, not a regular helmet obviously, is called the Guardian Cap. The CFL is mandating them to be used in practices by linemen, linebackers, and running backs.
They're kind of a goofy looking thing, aren't they? I mean, but they're really good. I mean, I've read the research on them. I think they reduce concussions by a significant amount, especially if both players are wearing them. And I think, again, we want to walk the walk. So when we say we care about players and player safety, we want to do everything we can.
Coach Dickinson and their new protective caps are planning to head back outdoors tomorrow. And if they do, practice will be at Griffith Stadium from 9 till noon. Canada's Environment Minister says operating conventional coal power plants past 2030 would be against the law. Yesterday, Premier Scott Moe said the province will consider operating its coal and natural gas plants until end of life, well past 2030. But the federal government has imposed a regulation that all coal plants must be closed, converted to natural gas, or equipped with carbon capture systems by the end of 2029. On Tuesday, Moe and Sask Power outlined the province's power generation plans. Moe said meeting the federal net zero electrical grid target by 2035 is unrealistic and unaffordable. Instead, the province has set a goal for 2050. Moe says power generation is in the province's jurisdiction, and it will consider running coal and natural gas plants until the end of their life, even past 2035. The federal Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Stephen Guilbeault, says burning coal past 2030 would violate the law.
I can speak specifically about coal because the regulations on clean electricity. But we've regulated the ban on coal through SEPA, which is a criminal tool that the federal government has. So not complying with this regulation would be a violation of Canada's criminal code.
Guilbeault says the grid does not have to be fossil fuel free by 2035, but rather net zero. He says more specifics will be released once the draft regulations of the clean electricity standards are published. A Saskatchewan mom who has a daughter with autism was at the legislature today to share a personal story of how she says the healthcare and childcare systems have let her family down. Jill Kokoski has an Instagram account that describes her daughter Evie's journey with autism and has more than 100,000 followers. Kokoski lives in Rosthern and says Evie recently lost her family doctor, pediatrician, and childcare support.
We desperately need a pediatrician. She's got 2 eating disorders on top of autism, and a lot of times there are comorbid disorders that go together that require complex care across the board, not just in one area. So the individualized funding doesn't give access to all of this. You can't access some of the supports that you need with the funding that they keep talking about For example, something like a doctor.
Kokoski was meeting with the Health Minister and Social Services Minister this afternoon. For some women and girls, finding the money to buy expensive menstrual products is a monthly struggle. Today, the province announced a new partnership that will put free tampons and pads into the hands of those that need them most. Shoppers Drug Mart will donate 12 million period products over the next 3 years, and the province will distribute them starting this fall. The minister responsible for the status of women says the cost of menstrual products is a barrier for many.
And sometimes women and girls do without. Not because they choose to, they just can't afford the cost or feel the burden of asking others to help them. And the impact can be quite significant, not just financially. There's a social and psychological and physical impact on someone if they have to miss school or they can't participate in social and recreational activities.
The free period products will primarily go to school-aged girls and women in transition houses. The Global Transportation Hub is getting another new tenant in its footprint west of Regina. Transportation company 4 Tracks Limited has purchased 15 acres of land. This summer, it plans to start construction on a nearly 17,000 square foot office, warehouse, and wash bay facility. The province says the trucking company will invest over $8 million in the project. 4 Tracks started in Regina in 2008 and has more than 350 employees. As for the GTH, more than 1,000 acres have been sold. Just over 500 acres are still for sale. The rest of the land is dedicated to infrastructure. Some tough questions today for the man in charge of Regina's biggest event facilities. Regina Exhibition Association Limited, or REAL, will owe nearly $7 million by September. REAL CEO Tim Reid appeared before the city's executive committee today to talk about the money woes. Reid blamed the financial troubles on COVID-19, which forced the cancellation of sports and concerts. A city report stated REAL would only be able to make its payments if it got a cash injection or was allowed to take on more debt. But further questioning cast doubt over how sustainable REAL's business model is.
We can't continually lose. So the question I'm asking is, how are you going to be doing it differently moving forward? Like, reflect on what's happened, but how are we going to change things?
We will find a way to get this back to a profitable business, and it is on track to do so. We will achieve that right now through cost cutting. Essentially, this is an expense management tool because our revenues are fairly flat. What I can say in 2023 that our revenues are on pace for budget, which is a good thing, but we have to manage the expense side, which has been a challenge over COVID and frankly last year as well.
Executive Council recommended administration develop a long-term financial plan to make REAL more sustainable. It voted in favor of moving the issues forward to City Council, which meets next Wednesday. The possibility of chaos and canceled flights is looming larger. Pilots at WestJet have served notice they're ready to begin striking Friday, and the company says the two sides are no closer to a deal. The main disputes are pay and job security. They've been negotiating without success for 9 months. Labor experts say the standoff reflects the deteriorating conditions in the profession. Any job action could affect WestJet and Swoop flights, disrupting long weekend travel plans for thousands of Canadians.
Some of the things that we've been doing is bringing in extra staff just to help provide information, direct passengers. If there was a sudden cancellation and we needed more taxis or directing people to bus service, we've given the taxi companies a heads up that this could be coming. We've worked with our parking partner to go, hey, if there's a disruption, like how can we get people out here quickly to try and minimize the pain as possible, as well as just having water and snacks if anybody is left stranded here for some reason.
As many as 1,800 WestJet pilots could walk off the job Friday morning. Well, this is National Victims and Survivors of Crime Week in our country, and in Regina's Victoria Park this morning, a visual show of support was on display. People gathered for the annual Hearts in the Park event put on by Regina Police, Circle Project, and Sophia House. It aims to raise awareness of the impacts of violence on victims and offer resources for both victims and perpetrators. This year's theme is Putting Our Hearts Together. People wrote their relationship to friends and family who were affected by violence on a heart, and they were then hung throughout the park. Organizers say interpersonal violence is not just traumatizing, it's costly.
did a research paper in 2017, which we published, and it was estimated that the cost was over $100,000 for one incident of family violence. So when you take a look at the fact that Saskatchewan is the capital of Canada for interpersonal violence, that's a very significant number, and resources need to be applied towards finding solutions for families and for communities.
Women and girls in Saskatchewan experienced the highest rate of violence in the country in 2021, while men and boys had the second highest rate nationwide. Well, the smoke is keeping people away from the outdoors in Regina today. The Air Quality Health Index staying at unhealthy levels through the day. Things cleared up a little bit in Saskatoon, but you can still smell it. Meteorologist Kristi Kleiman-Hege is, of course, keeping an eye on all this. She'll let us know how much longer this is sticking around when we come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Friend and Family F-150 event is on now.
And meteorologist Kristi Kleiman-Hege joins us now. Kristi, that smoke's so thick I can actually smell it in our studio here this evening.
Yeah, really potent across much of Saskatchewan, much of Alberta, into parts of Winnipeg. That smoke carrying as far as Ontario this week, and even into parts of the state. So really widespread, and in Saskatchewan, definitely feeling the effects on our air quality as it was mixing towards the surface. As for our air quality advisories, here's a look at what we had this afternoon. Much of the province seeing those air quality advisories in place. As we make our way through the end of the day today and into the day tomorrow, you could see some of these shifting around just as that smoke picture changes. But it is something to keep in mind if you are heading outside, and if you do fall into one of those high-risk groups, children, elderly, pregnant folk, all of those people more susceptible to the adverse effects of smoke. So something to keep in mind as you make your way through the next 24 hours. Now, as for what's driving that smoke, we are seeing winds coming in from the northwest, bringing in those air quality advisories. Air quality health indexes were at about 10 across the province earlier today. Thankfully, things did ease up a little bit into the afternoon, but still something to keep in mind through tonight. We could see more of those air quality advisories starting to pick up again once that smoke rolls in. So it will be kind of a variable picture over the next couple of days. We did start the day on low visibilities. That did improve through the day as well. Still hanging on to some lower visibilities in parts of southwestern Saskatchewan, but otherwise clearing up pretty nicely, and it looks like that will continue through tonight. Now, as for our temperature profile, we're coming off of a very hot day. What yesterday was record-breaking across much of the province. Temperatures in the high 20s or even into the 30s. Today, much cooler, but that fire risk still extreme across southern Saskatchewan with those hot and dry conditions. As we make our way through today and tomorrow, the cooler temperatures will help things out a little bit. It was about 17 degrees in Regina this afternoon, but not a lot of rain in sight, and also these winds still being a little bit on the breezy side coming in from the north, driving in that smoke, but also making that fire situation just a little bit more volatile in parts of northern Saskatchewan. As for our satellite and radar, again, not much to speak of tonight. As you move into the day tomorrow, high pressure building in behind that low pressure system. So something to keep in mind. We are going to see very clear conditions, very dry conditions taking us all the way through the weekend, and our winds a little more variable through the week, less strong, but looking at directions shifting a little bit out of the south by Friday, which should improve our smoke conditions just a little bit. As for our long-range forecast, we are seeing temperatures cooler tomorrow, about 16 degrees in Regina. By the weekend, again, much warmer, 30 degrees by Monday. The risk of some showers next week, which is good news for our dry conditions, but it is still a little ways out, so we'll have to watch and see how those develop. And into Saskatoon tomorrow, 17 degrees. Temperatures, again, climbing into the weekend. A little bit more active weather this weekend, about 31 degrees possible by Monday, and showery conditions possible next week too. So there is a change in our pattern, but even another couple of dry days before we get to that big shift in our weather.
Yeah, we will hope for that rain to come for sure. Thanks so much, Kristi.
You're welcome.
Well, Well, Jen Gibson noticed some activity in her gazebo back in early April, but didn't know what was going on, so she set up some cameras and discovered a mama fox. Then the fox kits started popping up in their yard in Grand Coulee, west of Regina. So far, she has counted as many as 9, but says it's hard to keep track. 7 have been captured on camera at one time. About 10 days ago, she posted the video to YouTube, much to our luck. We'll be back after the break. A spokesperson for Prince Harry and wife Meghan says the couple was involved in a near catastrophic car chase involving the paparazzi. The alleged incident happened last night in New York City, and it's drawing comparisons to the fatal crash in Paris in 1997 of Harry's mother, Princess Diana. Chris Reyes has the latest developments from New York.
Prince Harry and Meghan were in New York City last night for a charity event. The Duchess of Sussex was being honored at the Women of Vision Gala for her work with women and girls. The event started at 6 p.m. As far as we know, they arrived at the venue with no incident, but the real chaos, according to their publicist, happened after they left the event at about 10 p.m. The pair's publicist released a statement this morning saying that there was a relentless pursuit of the couple by the paparazzi that lasted over 2 hours, with multiple near collisions involving other drivers, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers, adding that the near catastrophic car chase came at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi.
There's scooters and motorcycles running in between them, ahead of them, crossing in front of them. They're trying to create some distance, and this is becoming worse and worse.
Prince Harry has talked extensively about how much he despises the paparazzi and how traumatizing it has been for him to be followed by photographers throughout his life, the anger that he still has about what they put his mother through, and how much he's wanted to protect his own family from suffering the same fate as his mother. Now, the NYPD has confirmed that the chase happened. In their words, they said there were numerous photographers that made their transport challenging. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex arrived at their destination, and there were no reported collisions, summonses, injuries, or arrests. The city's mayor, Eric Adams, weighed in on this. Have a listen to what he said.
I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase. That would be, I find it hard to believe, but we will find out the exact duration of it. But if it's 10 minutes, a 10-minute chase is extremely dangerous in New York City.
And according to Mayor Eric Adams, the NYPD has launched an investigation into the incident. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
At least 8 people have died and thousands forced from their homes after torrential rain triggered flooding in northern Italy. Some areas received half their annual average rainfall in just 36 hours. Rivers burst their banks, sending muddy waters rushing throughout towns and washing over roofs and parked cars. Rescuers plucked people from the upper floors of their homes or rooftops. Hundreds of hectares of farmland are submerged, and although the rains have eased, water levels are still rising. Road and rail links are out of commission in several locations in the region, and this weekend's Formula One race in one of the worst hit areas has been called off. And Christy is back with one last look at our forecast.
And a cooler forecast ahead, at least for the next couple of days before we get back into the heat as you make your way through the long weekend. Here's a look at Regina's forecast. Tonight, still a little bit of haze out there. You could see a little bit of smoke lingering into the morning hours. 8 degrees at midnight. By tomorrow morning, temperatures a little cooler and seeing those breaks of sunshine. 8 degrees at 9 a.m. back towards about the mid-teens by the afternoon. And into Saskatoon tonight, similar story. The risk of some hazy conditions, could see some higher air quality health indexes through the day. Tomorrow, 6 degrees at midnight, though. By tomorrow morning, temperatures holding pretty steady overnight, but bumping up to about 9 degrees by 9 a.m. And again, closer to seasonal in the afternoon, but warmer this weekend. Ethan?
All right, thanks very much, Christy. And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Christy and I are back with more local news and weather at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.